Hello and welcome to Webology Learn for Good. I am Aakash Biswas and let's get started with basic computer hardware. So, in this video tutorial, we're going to look at a hard disk and what is inside a hard disk and how it works, and also difference between HDD and SSD drive, etc. And then finally, we'll look at how to install a hard disk on your computer motherboard, etc. So, let's get started. So here is a hard disk, as you can see from the form and shape. This is a HDD hard disk, or also known as hard disk drive. So hard disk is a storage device that uses a magnetic storage to store and retrieve data. Okay, and it uses a rotating disk known as platters, coated with a magnetic head. So if you open if you open the hard disk, you'll see a big magnetic plate, also known as platters, like a CD, which holds the data. Okay, and there is a moving accutor arm, which reads and writes data to the platter. So there'll be an arm like this. If you open the hard disk, you can see there'll be an arm over the platter, which reads the data. And the data is accessed in a random manner so that it can be retrieved randomly and not in a sequence, and thus it makes the process faster of retrieving data and reading and writing it. And it is a non-volatile memory, so this is very important. I think a very important factor in hard disk. It is non-volatile memory, and a non-volatile memory, basically the advantage is that after you shut down the power of the computer, it does not lose data, it is stored magnetically. Okay, unlike a RAM, after you switch off your computer, it loses data, but a hard disk will always keep data because it is non-volatile memory. And so now comes a very important segment of how does actually a hard disk work. Okay, so as I said, the hard disk has magnetic platters, which are round plates like a big CD. So you have seen DVDs and CD, this big, but it is a much bigger plate, and it is coated with magnetic material. Okay, and so each platters hold certain amount of information, and so a drive with a lot of storage, like a big hard disk, like say 500 GB or 1 TB hard disk, will have a lot more platters than with less storage. So this here they actually indicate on this sticker over here the storage device. So this is a 320 gigabytes, 320 GB hard disk, but nowadays you'll have minimum 500 GB to 1 TB hard disk, which are very common these days. And as I said, there's a accutor arm which sticks over the platter. So there'll be a platter, the big disk, and there'll be an arm, accutor arm, which sticks over the platters, and it contains read and write heads, which are used to read and store the magnetic information on the platters. So if you open this, if you dismantle this, take out the screws from here, you'll see a big plate, big CD plate, and there'll be an arm, an accutor magnetic arm, which reads and writes data. Okay, and there's a motor which is used to spin the platters, and the rotation per minute or RPM is from 4,500 to 15,000 RPM. So there's a motor which rotates the disc, the the platters, at the speed of the RPM of 4,500 to 15,000 RPM per minute. So the platters inside spin very fast. There's a motor which makes it spin very fast, and Yeah, so the faster the RPM, you will get better performance of your hard disk. And the reason is that you can read and write data at much quicker pace. And so now I'll just give you a warning over here, is that as I said, the hard disk, the HDD hard disk, stores data in a magnetic form. Okay, so it is not a good idea to keep magnets very close to the hard disk or to your computer actually. So in front of your computer cabinet, make sure to never keep magnets, live magnets, or even magnetic devices, things that contain magnets like speakers. Your speakers will have magnets inside, so make sure that your speakers are, say, a couple of centimeters or even a meter away from the computer cabinet, because that can affect the hard disk, as they contain magnet and it can destroy the data completely, and then you won't have a way to recover the data. So make sure to never keep magnets close to your computer or your hard disk. If you have a live hard disk like this, you're taken out to see what is a hard disk and what is inside, make sure to never keep magnets close to your hard disk. And also another very important tip that I want to share with you is that when you have a working hard disk like this one, is a working hard disk, this is working, it contains a lot of data, info, etc. Make sure to never dismantle it. Okay, I know there'll be a lot of geeks and nerds out there who want to see explore what is inside the hard disk and how does it work, but make sure to never dismantle a working hard disk, as it can spoil the hard disk inside. So when you dismantle, you can actually spoil your hard disk. And also, if your hard disk is very new, you just bought it recently, it contain a warranty, and if you open the screws, you're going to lose that warranty. Okay, so these are the very two fundamental tips that you need to remember with the hard disk. So never dismantle a hard disk when it's working, and when also it's in a warranty period. And also never keep magnets very close to your computer or your hard disk. Okay, so a couple of points just before buying a hard disk to know is that the storage. Okay, so whenever you buy a hard disk, you ask the computer retailer how much is the hard disk, okay, how many GB, gigabytes, and if you see, you can see it will be mentioned over here, but also on the package that you buy, the package of the hard disk manufacturer. Okay, how many GB, how many gigabytes. So the higher number of GB, gigabytes, the more storage you'll have, but also it'll be costlier. And then comes the rotation per minute, the RPM. How fast does the motor inside spin? So that the platters can read and write data much faster. And also the other very important factor is the interface of the hard disk. Okay, how the hard disk will connect to the computer, the motherboard, because this is connected to the motherboard. And so make sure when you buy your hard disk that the interface of the hard disk, well, I'll come to that, actually supported by the motherboard. If your hard disk is not supported by the motherboard, then boss, you will not your hard disk will not work, and will be just spending money without really making use of it. So make sure before buying a hard disk, you know the interface and that it supports your motherboard. So this is the interface that I'm talking about. Okay. And as you can see here, this is the power interface and this is the setup. Okay, so in the next section we'll look at how to install a hard disk. And this is the power section. The hard disk gets power from the SMPS, which also provides power to the computer motherboard, and power cable from the SMPS comes over here. And the SATA of this, the hard disk is connected to the motherboard via the SATA port. Okay, so this is a SATA port, and there'll be a cable, a SATA cable, which is connected to the motherboard. Okay, so I'll just keep here this here, and just share with you two very important points in before buying a hard disk, because nowadays you might have heard the term SSD, which stands for solid state drive. So before buying a hard disk, you have to make sure that what type of hard disk you buy. This is a very conventional hard disk, or HDD hard disk. Now there are also SSD drives, which are known, as I said, as solid state drive. Well, what is a SSD drive? Basically, a SSD drive is much faster, but is much costlier than conventional hard disk. And what is inside the SSD drive is that it uses a electronic integrated circuit to store memory compared to magnetic storage than HDD drive. Thus, it is much faster and much secure, but it's also costlier. So on a SDD drive, there will be integrated circuits, electronic integrated circuits to store the data, compared to a conventional HDD hard disk, which has magnetic platters to store data. Thus, SSD drives are much costlier, and as of now, the large number of as of now, there's still large number of people which use HDD drives because it's much cheaper, and SSD drives are basically used for higher purposes when you have a lot of data, and you can also afford to buy SSD drives. But if you're just a average computer user, you can go for HDD drives. It's very good, but just keep those couple of points in mind. Okay, so lastly, we'll see how to install a hard disk on a motherboard and connect on a motherboard and SMPS. Okay, as you can see over here, this is the SMPS, the power supply unit, which gives the power to the motherboard as well as the hard disk. And here, this is the cable, the SATA cable to connect the hard disk to the motherboard. Okay, so here, as I've shown you, this is a SATA port. Okay, so I go ahead and connect the SATA connector over here, and then, as we have seen in the previous video, these are the SATA ports which connects the hard disk as well as the optical drive. So I can go ahead and just install the hard disk over here. Okay, next we'll need power to the hard disk, to give power to the hard disk. So here I want power outlet from the SMPS, which I can connect to the power port of the hard disk. So this is how you install a hard disk on a computer. If you open your computer cabinet, you'll see that the SMPS will power the motherboard as well as hard disk, and the hard disk is connected to the motherboard via the SATA cable, the serial attachment cable. And that's it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video and learned what's a hard disk, what's inside a hard disk, and how does a HDD drive work, and then how to install a hard disk. So make sure to like, comment, share and subscribe, and do keep coming back to Webology Learn for Good. And thanks for watching.